The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 6th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. So whenever you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be praised by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so as to show others that they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that your fasting may be seen not by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
On Wednesday, February 18th, 2015, St. Paul's Evangelical Lutheran Church died at her home. She was born on December 10th, 1882 in Colcamp, Missouri, having been established by a number of German Lutheran immigrant families who preceded her in death. She is survived by a large cloud of witnesses who have all shared in the waters of baptism within her walls. St. Paul's was a member of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, as well as numerous other predecessor bodies. She spent her life witnessing to the light and life of Jesus Christ in all that she did. But she especially enjoyed gathering weekly for worship, serving potluck meals, singing, and building floats for the Colcamp Fair Parade. During the summers, you could always find her at the Mid-Mo Bible Camp or with the town's children at Vacation Bible School. She will be remembered by many in the town as a place for the community to gather together. A memorial service will be held on Wednesday evening, with burial to follow at a later date. At a time like this, we give thanks for the sure and confident hope that we have in the resurrection. And so, with heavy hearts and fond memories, we gather together this evening to remember our church. We gather to celebrate a life well lived, a life full of love and activity and fellowship, full of shared joys and shared tears, a life full of filling people's hearts, souls, and bodies with life-giving food. On behalf of St. Paul's and her family, I thank you for coming this evening to give thanks for her life and commend her to her death. Now, before you start thinking that you've come this evening to watch us close our church doors for the final time, that's not what's going on. I'm trying to paint a picture here because we need to remember what this night is about. Ash Wednesday is about death. Ash Wednesday is about the start of a season in which we are called to remember our own mortality. Ash Wednesday is less about playing in the dirt than it is focusing on what the dirt is and where it comes from. which points us in the direction of death. We talk a lot in the church about death and new life. For one thing, we say that when someone is baptized, they die. Their old selves die when they enter into the water or when they are washed with the water, coming out with a brand new life. Our old sinful lives get left behind at the font, and we walk away in the newness of life in Christ Jesus. Or we talk about being dead in sin, not having the life and ability to live as free human beings. That is, until Jesus came and rose from the dead to break us free from that death. So I wonder why we don't have a funeral service or a memorial service or a celebration of life when we have a baptism. Why don't we take the time to honor the life that was once lived and then give thanks for and celebrate the new life that they have now received? How powerful it would be to make such a bold statement to accompany that sacramental act. But tonight, there is no baptism. There is just death and ashes. In just a little while, you will be invited, and if you are so inclined, you can come forward and have those ashes smeared on your forehead. Not as a boastful act to show off your faith around town, not as an attention-grabbing symbol so that God knows how pious you are, but as a humbling, penitential ritual so that we are reminded of our mortality. Which is, of course, something that we're not really fond of. We don't like talking about death. And we generally don't talk about death unless we're near it or at it. Even with our faith in God and our hope in the resurrection, death still hurts. It means the loss of someone you care deeply for. It means not having a loved one around anymore. It means the end of your earthly life and the end of everything you've ever known. Sure, we try and make plans for those final days, funeral arrangements, estate plans, hymn choices, but still nothing fully prepares us for the sting of death. It's especially hurtful when the death is unexpected or tragic or too early or too late. I mean, our mortality is quite fragile. And so we try to avoid messing with it if at all possible. For example, I feel like I'm not that scared of death. I mean, I know it's an inevitable thing for myself and for all of my loved ones. It, of course, will and does hurt when my friends and family members die, but I know it's going to happen at some point. But you may have noticed that Charlotte is here with us this evening, and I've thought long and hard about it, and I've decided that I can't put ashes on her tonight. Not yet. I'm not going to, I'm not ready. I'm going to go with the excuse that the ashes might not be good on the skin of a 12-week-old, or that they may fall in her eyes as she's laying down. But to be completely honest, I'm just not ready for it yet. Yes, mortality is just as inevitable for her as it is for every one of us. But that one's going to take some extra time for me. But this is the place, the time, the season for that kind of work, for me and for us all. This is where we get to feel the grit of our ashes. This is where we write our own funeral sermons. This is where we face death. Not alone, of course, because we embark on this pilgrimage together with Jesus right by our side. Maybe at this point you're thinking, why? Why should we do this? What do we get from working and thinking through our own mortality? I mean, is that what Lent is about? Well, I personally think that Lent is about getting down to the realness and rawness of our humanity And that, for me, includes dealing with mortality. Because I think once you deal with death, you are more open to life. And so we do things like giving up things for Lent. Again, not to show off or receive some kind of reward in the end, but to engage in a type of fasting, a clearing away of things that often get in the way of other things. Maybe we fast from a favorite food or drink, or from activities, or from stuff, which may give us a little more time, or money, or energy, or space to explore other things in our lives. Maybe we can fast from our fears, particularly about mortality and death, so that we have the space to explore hope and life. The dirt, the ashes that we will receive on our foreheads allow us to look death in the eye and believe that out of death comes life. Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. We are only dust, but we are dust that God has breathed life into. There's a great song out there called Beautiful Things, by Michael Gungor, in which in this chorus of this song, he addresses it to God. And he says, "You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us." God has made a beautiful thing by taking dust, breathing life into it, and creating us. The life and breath of God fills all of our cavities and turns the dust that's on our forehead into beautiful human beings. Our job this Lent is to strip away all of those things that keep us from embodying and being that life and breath of God. We will get dirty doing that, but God has promised us that on the other side of all of this, new life does await. Thanks be to God.